what are the different categories of procrastination? Because you mentioned about learning procrastination.
Exactly what I said. I have procrastinated as well.
What is your personal experience about procrastination?
It, let's not go into categories. It's academics are many of them, but that's not exactly the same as learning procrastination. It has a few other parameters.
A warm welcome to Siddharth to our podcast today.
Thank you, Manjari. Glad to be here.
So Siddharth is a transformational coach with around 30 years of experience, and now we directly understand from him about his work.
Thanks, Manjari. Manjari, I work with transformations of mind, body, and spirit. So that means if we know where we are now and where we would like to be. So for example, if I am a procrastinator and I would like to not procrastinate, I am happy, I'm not happy, and I would like to be happy. I have a relationship which is not going too well. I would like to make it go well. So basically, where we are now. So that's in the matter of the mind, and in the body, I work with three areas. One is obesity. The second is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, and the third is type 2 diabetes. So these are the roughly the two areas that I work with for transformations.
Okay, thank you. So let's talk about procrastination today, because a lot of people ask me and tell me that they procrastinate, they want to do a lot of things, but they procrastinate a lot. So what exactly is procrastination, and why do so many people ask me that procrastination and this and that, and how common is this struggle?
It's really, really common. In fact, I think about 25% of the world procrastinates. That's a lot of billion people. That is one. Secondly, what is procrastination? Procrastination is when we delay or we put off stuff that we know we have to be doing. So अगर मैं कुछ चीज को टरका देता हूँ या नहीं करता हूँ और मुझे पता है कि मुझे करना है, मुझे पता है इसके consequences होंगे, मुझे पता है, I have committed and so on and whatever. And if I delay or put that off, it is procrastination.
Okay. So can you explain the psychology behind procrastination? If so many people are doing it, why do we do it actually? What's the psychology behind procrastination?
Most people, the first time they encounter something like this, either in themselves or when they look at others, they begin to think it is something to do with a lack of discipline or a deficiency in their time management or just plain laziness. But it's really an emotional problem. For most of us, it's an emotional problem because it's coming from a mixture of fear and avoidance. So it could be, I fear failure. I could fear not being perfect. Maybe I have ideas of perfection in my head, or even sometimes, depending on who we are, fear of success. For example, someone needs a job and they have been asked to send a resume. And people who have certain emotional issues, they might end up sending that resume 2 weeks later, long after the job is already gone to somebody. And sometimes we also use, in fact, a lot of the time, we use procrastination as a way to cope with anxiety and stress. Basically doing things that give us comfort and some degree of enjoyment, emotional comfort and enjoyment, as opposed to the things that we ought to be doing.
So what are the most common triggers, what you have seen in your 3 decades of wellness, being a wellness coach, that what are the most common triggers in humans for procrastination?
In my opinion, it is usually something that is unresolved. It is usually something that it could be, for example, a cognitive dissonance. There's something going on inside me. There's a conflict going on inside me, and that conflict puts me in a state of emotional unrest, or a certain degree of anxiety, or a certain degree of, let's say, being overwhelmed if I've got too many things happening. There's so many things that happen, but essentially a place where I'm in a place where I am not as comfortable as I would like to be. And therefore, my mind, my brain tends to procrastinate or to encourage procrastination to get me into better places.
So what's the way out now? Now we understood that many people, 25% people procrastinate, and it is triggered because of some emotional thing. And all of us as humans have emotional thing today, tomorrow, or in future, or in past. So what is the way out for people?
For procrastination, it is usually we need to start resolving ourselves. We need to start figuring out what's happening. We need to start, maybe, for example, a wellness routine, such as, for example, begin to meditate, begin to introspect a little bit. A lot of us tend to, let's say, get under pressure and do things which typically make us try to have our cake and eat it too, which means that our ये भी चाहिए और वो भी चाहिए, and we do not want to compromise on either one of them. That also causes a lot of dissonances, and then we've been doing this for a very long time. So all these dissonances tend to start stacking up. So usually suggest introspection as a major means of, as a major start of finding out what's wrong, where it is wrong, why it is wrong, how long it's been that way, and to begin to get onto the path of doing what is right, in a manner of speaking. When I say right, I'm talking about something that does not cause a dissonance, where a dissonance would be where my thoughts and my actions, or two of my thoughts or similar stuff, are not really in sync. And that causes, for example, I might be saying that I'm very much for the environment, but I go ahead and buy an SUV. There's a bit of a dissonance happening there, because my actions have proven my thoughts incorrect. Maybe I've said it to a lot of people. So now I know a lot of people know that I have bought an SUV, and a lot of people know I've been talking my head off about the environment. So that creates a bit of an issue inside me. How do I do this? How do I do that? So in that context, where that thing causes an unrest, I would need to resolve it. So either by saying that, yes, I'm a hypocrite. That's who I am. And वो भी बोला नहीं जाता. And if I say, yes, I'm a hypocrite, then perhaps, that context will be somewhat resolved by accepting that I have said one thing and I've done it. But I can't do that. So I need to basically take some kind of corrective measure, some kind of action to begin to resolve all the knots inside me, all the little things that I have stacked up over the years. Because procrastination usually chronic तरीके से manifest करती है. And of course, there is acute procrastination, जो केवल अभी की अभी हो रही है, but that is not really as much of a problem like a chronic one. उसको resolve करने में takes a little bit of time, but when you start going in the right way, you definitely resolve it really, really well. बहुत दिखता है, and it's a source of great happiness when we begin to be able to do the thing that we have not been able to do in the past.
What has been your personal experience with procrastination, with your clients or with self or with your people around? What is your personal experience about procrastination?
Personal experience is exactly what I said. I have procrastinated as well, in a chronic way as well as in an acute way. And it's basically the same thing. When I have anxiety, now that anxiety could also be caused by dissonances inside me. So अगर मैं anxious हूँ, मान लीजिए दिल धड़क रहा है, और गले में heart beat हो रहा है, you know what I mean. Just में वो feeling आ रही है, tense वाली feeling and all those things. So am I really going to set up and write a 20-page paper on what I'm supposed to be writing? How will I write that paper? So I either need to resolve the thing that's going on inside me, or I need to do something about the anxiety or something, right? Similarly is the case with most people. Of course, some cases are really, really difficult because people have a lot of stacked up stuff. The other variable that I have found which makes a huge difference is courage. People, including me, including all of us, our courage seems to be context dependent, number one. And number two, we don't appear to have used courage very much all our lives, because we appear to have been guided and into various things that we don't haven't had to work as much as we need to. In fact, some people I find almost a complete absence of courage, not only in a specific context, मान लीजिए education, मान लीजिए नौकरी, मान लीजिए religion, मान लीजिए बच्चे लोग, but generally they have never had to really work. When we say we give our children everything, we are actually depriving them of the ability to develop their own courage. And at some point in time, for example, some procrastination solutions require that courage, because you have to be able to at least start doing the thing that you need to. So courage becomes a really important variable in almost, in my opinion, almost every sphere of life, especially when we talk about overcoming procrastination, personal courage.
Okay. Yeah, that's why.
Are my answers too long, or am I talking too much?
No, this is very interesting. And yeah, I can relate it, because in many countries, walker has been banned because it impairs a child's ability to try and walk. It destroys the willpower. So many countries, walker has been banned for kids.
Mm-hmm.
So how if courage is so important, then how do we build up that courage, that willpower in us, so that we do not procrastinate? अब बचपन में तो जो होना था वो हो गया, वॉकर में चले हम, वो जो भी किए, बट नाउ व्हाट कैन वी डू टू बिल्ड अप द करेज एंड the willpower to not get into the trap of procrastination?
Acha, this courage, by the way, is not just procrastination. Courage impacts our relationships, impacts our careers, impacts our wellness, impacts so many things. Because sometimes, for example, agar aap dekhiye, just an example of boundaries. I'm sure you've come across many cases where we need to set boundaries, but you haven't been setting boundaries. अब देखिए बाउंड्रीज भी सेट करने के लिए हमको करेज की आवश्यकता है, क्योंकि हमको किसी और को कहना है कि ये मत करिए, ये यहाँ मत करिए, ये मेरी सीमाएं हैं, आप इसको थोड़ा सा ऑब्जर्व करिए. वो भी कहने में वी नीड क्वाइट अ बिट ऑफ करेज, राइट? बिकॉज and we bring up our children in a manner where we impose so many overheads. We must respect age, we must respect relationships. So basically, we tell them to respect and obey everything except themselves. We don't really tell them much about how awesome they are. So therefore, to develop courage much later in life, having, let's say, skipped the journey, मान लीजिए 25-30 साल की उम्र में हमको इस तरह का debilitating procrastination होता है, तो वो सारे experience that we could have used developing courage, we haven't. Today, in my opinion, the only way to develop, not the only way, the fastest way and the most sustainable way of developing courage is to go through a series of little tasks, tiny little things, where the first one doesn't trigger any kind of procrastinative urges. The first one is something really normal. Or धीरे करके we go to more and more tasks, overcoming that internal resistance along the way. And if you check out my website, at the bottom of my site, there is a section called Open Source Protocols. Because I find that there are folks who might not want to work with me, who might not be able to afford to work with me, who might not have the courage to work with anyone for that matter. So it is important that they have a solution to move forward. And in this Open Source Protocol section, one of the protocols is internal courage. It has a series of tasks. It tells you how to do it. एक करके करेंगे. And by the time you're done, your courage is a little more than before.
Okay. Yeah. So viewers, if you want to build up that courage and resilience, do go to his website and do those small tasks. And actually, that's why there's a very famous quote by Bill Gates: we underestimate what we can do in a year, but we overestimate what we can do in next 10 days or in the short term. Because every day we do little, we don't realize it, but we do build up the courage and the resilience to develop ourselves. Yeah. So so I can resonate with it fully, because that courage is required. Actually also, because when people register for my workshops, I give free consultation for 30 minutes, but a very small percentage of people who register, they would want to do the free consultation one-to-one. And many people have written, I am fine to do it in a group as a webinar, but I don't want to face you one-to-one. So facing a therapist also one-to-one, people are overwhelmed, and because they don't know what to happen also. So this I have also, which was quite a shocker for me, because I felt कि free में है तो लोग तो सब लेंगे, मैं कैसे handle करूंगी? But a very small percentage actually booked, because they said it is overwhelming them to face one-to-one a therapist. So I can resonate with the courage thing. And does procrastination has a level, like it is chronic? It, like percentage wise, it becomes chronic. Initially, it is less, and then it becomes chronic, or it can suddenly be chronic. How does it? Is it a progressive thing? How does it happen in a person?
It can be progressive, but it really depends on person to person. So chronic is कि मान लीजिए बहुत बड़े सालों से चल रहा है. Acute is कि अभी कि मान लीजिए पिछले 10 दिन से शुरू हो रहा है. शायद कुछ context है मेरी जिंदगी में, which is overwhelming me for some reason, which is causing those internal circumstances that cause me to seek refuge in procrastination. And chronic is obviously, it's been going on for a while. So yes, there are different levels, though I would put it more as, I would define the levels progressively as how they impact the quality of our lives. So if you look at quality of life as an indicator, so procrastination tends to reduce the quality of our lives, because we for example, procrastinate paying the बिजली का bill, तो थोड़ा बहुत quality of life down हो ही जाएगा ना. ऐसे ही, if you procrastinate, for example, paying the children's school fees, or procrastinating things at work, so it begins to affect our quality of life. And when that happens, then the level increases. The things we procrastinate, sometimes we do not procrastinate the urgent things, we procrastinate other things that we can. Sometimes we will not procrastinate things at work, but we will procrastinate things related to relationships. So relationship down हो रही है, काम up हो रहा है, तो still life is still getting screwed. So it depends on that, how it impacts the quality of our lives and the extent and the magnitude of the impact it has on us. So that defines the progression without getting into any.
और मैं अगर अपने बिहेवियर में रिफ्लेक्ट करूं तो मैं जनरली प्रोक्रेस्टिनेट करती हूँ जो काम बड़ा है, जबकि वी ऑल नो दैट वी हैव टू इन्वेस्ट 80% ऑफ आवर टाइम टू द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट टास्क. बट मेरा क्या होता है, अगर मुझे कोई काम अच्छा नहीं लगता या वो बहुत टीडियस है, सो मैं लो हैंगिंग फ्रूट्स पहले करूंगी. छोटे काम जो जल्दी कर सकते हैं लो हैंगिंग फ्रूट करेंगे, जबकि उसका शायद आउटकम उतना इम्पोर्टेंट नहीं है, लेकिन जो बड़ा काम है उसको मैं प्रोक्रेस्टिनेट कर दूंगी. तो जो सब्जेक्ट इजी है, मैं जब स्टूडेंट थी तब भी जो सब्जेक्ट इजी है, जो बिना पढ़े भी मैं पास कर सकती हूँ, वो मैं ज्यादा पढ़ती थी, rather than कि जिसमें मैं वीक हूँ और मैं पास नहीं भी कर सकती हूँ, उसमें ज्यादा टाइम दे. तो ये बिहेवियर क्या आपने अपने क्लाइंट्स में या पीपल अराउंड यू भी नोटिस किया है?
This is normal, no? Because procrastination is also sometimes many times used as a coping mechanism. ताकि हम वो काम करें जो हमको comforting लगता है या जो rewarding लगता है. So one is comfort. The second is some kind of motivation or emotional rewards that are coming from. So, for example, I might not clean my room, but I like you very much, and if you say clean do stuff for me, I'll clean your stuff, all those things, right? Because I like you, so doing stuff for you will give me a reward, an emotional reward of some sort. So I have motivation for it. But since I might not have the same relationship with myself, so I will not do my own room, even though it takes the same amount of time and effort. So this is normal that we procrastinate the things that feel comfortable. For example, when I was a kid, I probably did the same thing. English padhta tha, because English was my first language. English I was very good at it. So without interest, I should have been studying maths or social studies. I didn't.
So what can we actually nudge ourselves out of the comfort zone and not procrastinate? Because many times I get into that comfort zones and procrastinate the things which I don't know well or I don't want to do. So how do we nudge ourselves out of the comfort zone and get into doing things which has to be done and which are important?
There are many techniques. For example, there is one technique called the Pomodoro technique, where we work in short bursts. छोटे-छोटे bursts में काम करेंगे, बीच-बीच में break लेते रहेंगे. So I suggest that to a number of people. I do it myself a lot of the time. For example, I might be doing a certain task, and बीच में I might get up and do some drawing or some doodling or maybe lift some weights बीच में, then come back to do what I was supposed to be doing. That is one. The second thing is sometimes, like you mentioned, last tasks, they seem very overwhelming because a lot of the time this anxiety or stress, especially in these sort of circumstances, is because we don't know the next step. The next step is not clear. We don't know the progression. How will we progress this task from start to finish? हमको पता नहीं है. और जब पता नहीं है, the unknown again gives us some degree of anxiety. So a large task can be planned so much better अगर हम उसको छोटे-छोटे task में थोड़ा break down कर लें. और फिर जब पूरा का पूरा वो तैयार हो गया, उसमें हमने एक तो एफर्ट इन्वेस्ट किया, लेकिन साथ-साथ हमको थोड़ी और क्लैरिटी भी मिल रही है कि what is the way ahead. That reduces procrastination a lot. Sometimes it becomes much easier to just start something and then say I will take a break after 2 minutes. We can do that also. So there are many ways. In fact, there are ways in which we can literally procrastinate procrastination using the same mechanism as procrastination to procrastinate itself. Ways to trick the mind.
Okay, so this is very interesting. How can I procrastinate the procrastination?
So there are ways. For example, one is to just start something और अपने आप को कहेंगे कि 2 मिनट बाद मैं रोक दूंगी. 2 मिनट सिर्फ काम करूंगी. Literally 2 मिनट अलार्म सेट करके 2 मिनट का, उसके बाद I will stop doing. Chances are you will probably not stop, but this is what we need to tell ourselves to start it. Then we might have procrastination schedule. कि अभी I'm going to start, 30 minutes later I'm going to spend time on social media, 10 minute reels देखो. We try something like that. Achha, then there is something called self-negotiation. And how will I will talk to myself and I will negotiate. कि अगर मैं ये करूंगा तो I will take that reward for myself. So basically it's all about being more and more aware of what you're doing But the details of this, I'm going to be publishing an article shortly. That's why I don't want to talk too much about it now. I'm going to be
Okay.
writing an article or doing a podcast on the concept of procrastination. So, usme I will be giving a lot more detail. If that's all right.
Okay. So, but in my personal experience, I find that starting is the most difficult thing. That once I start, instead of 2 minutes, I might work on it for 2 hours. That is there. But starting is the most difficult. So, any tips or tricks to get started in the first place?
You will start faster. You will start more consistently once you tell yourself that I will stop after 2 minutes. I agree, starting is the most difficult part. Like starting is usually difficult because we envision some kind of sincere working. 2 घंटे काम करूंगी. I will do this. I will do that. ये objectives complete करने हैं. वो सोचते सोचते हैं. We rarely think of starting and planning to stop after 2 minutes. तो ये आप एक बार ट्राई करके देखिएगा कि literally explicitly saying I will stop after 2 minutes. Start it like that. You'll find it might be a little easier. Number one. Number two, starting might be easier if you plan the task and make the job something you can accomplish. Because one thing we do not do is set ourselves up for success. We rarely think, I will give myself this reward if I do this. We are usually very hard on ourselves. We are usually our biggest critics. अपने आप को बहुत criticize करते हैं and all that. So we rarely make plans with built-in motivation generators. तो मान लीजिए आप कुछ टास्क कंप्लीट करें. The task is going to be designed for task completion, not for your motivation. Sorry, the plan is going to be designed for task completion, not your motivation. So when we design a plan which includes not only task-based divisions, but also motivation-based tasks. इसको कंप्लीट करने से, इसको इस समय कंप्लीट करने से मुझे आगे के 2 घंटे या 2 टास्क करने में ज्यादा मोटिवेशन, वो हम वेरी रेयरली करते हैं. Include motivation as a component of our plans. When we start doing that, we'll start also faster. So therefore, the first task will not be too hard. It will be something that will move smoothly. Something जिसके लिए आपको ज्यादा मेहनत नहीं करना, कहीं ज्यादा सोचना नहीं है, ज्यादा लोगों से बात नहीं करना, क्योंकि a lot of people have issues with talking to other people and see. So something that is easy for me to do. So therefore, I should design my plans such that they facilitate and are conducive to motivation as well as task completion.
And then procrastination, how does it impact mental health and overall well-being of a person?
It impacts a lot because our relationships start going down. For example, procrastination could lead to, let's say, broken promises, a lack of priority, a perceived lack of commitment, and a lot of those other things which impact things. Now, the same things would impact our work as well. Our work may impact our procrastination. By definition, means we are aware कि हमको वो काम करना. The average person is sincere. I have so far not met a single person who is literally a bad person in absolute terms. I know people who do bad things, but I don't know any bad people per se. Right? So therefore, because procrastination by definition implies कि हमको पता है हमको क्या करना चाहिए और हम नहीं कर रहे हैं consciously. Therefore, that brings feelings of guilt. It might feel feelings of self-betrayal, feelings of betraying other people, feelings of not being sincere towards people. So many things, छोटी-छोटी चीजें. उसके साथ-साथ नौकरी is going down the drain and the relationship is going down the drain. उसके साथ-साथ I'm not also procrastinating my own wellness जो मुझे अपने लिए करना चाहिए वो भी मैं नहीं कर रहा क्योंकि and all those things. So therefore, it brings down the quality of life tremendously by impacting almost literally every sphere of our existence.
आपके लाइफ में और आपके जो क्लाइंट्स वगैरह उनके कोई रियल लाइफ एग्जांपल बताइए जिसमें कि प्रोक्रास्टिनेशन really affected a person, because in my life I feel that procrastination affected me but I didn't even realize it and I was not cognizant of it. So ऐसा कोई रियल लाइफ एग्जांपल बताइए कि जहाँ की प्रोक्रास्टिनेशन ने काफी अफेक्ट किया किसी की लाइफ.
Yeah, so many people, almost everybody, the same thing. कि हम अपने wellness की जैसे हमको walking शुरू करनी है. We don't even start the walking process. We don't get that going. अच्छा, then the same thing with the jobs. The same thing. जो भी मैंने कहा ना, all those things are coming from real life example. Maybe I'm procrastinating because I think I might not understand it and I'm not used to, let's say, cognitive failures. Because I think I've got a nice mind and I understand most things. और अगर मुझे वो समझ नहीं आया तो I might not be able to handle my ego, whatever. That sort of thing. So maybe I'm procrastinating a fear of failure. Could be that. So any number of things, but ultimately we have to start learning to recognize the fear that we have. A lot of us operate out of fear. अगर आप देखेंगे, all this advertising is based on fear. Is based on creating fear. For example, the first time I noticed this, it said, "Are you fearful that your face and your hands are a different color, your skin?" I said, "Really? People think about it?" Most people I know say, "We don't think about it," but then that's how they create fears in people. कि अगर बोल रहे हैं तो होगा. My God, मेरा अलग है नहीं है. So basically, धीरे we have a lot of fear. Fear about our sense of self, fear about our way of being, fear about the continuity of our relationships, fear about a very common fear is because we put all our happiness into our partners. We get our happiness from our partners and खुद से कुछ नहीं करते. So we are okay without the partner, happy with the partner. What it should be is that we are happy by ourselves and happier with the partner. So that अगर partner से जो भी ऊपर नीचे हो रहा है, हमारी खुशी तो कहीं नहीं गई. But we don't do that. As a result, we almost live constantly in a state of anxiety and fear. So we have to start addressing that, no? And live a life which is more conducive towards removing these sources of fear and anxiety.
और ये क्या, व्हाट आर द सिग्नल्स कि हमें पता चले कि हम प्रोक्रेस्टिनेट कर रहे हैं? क्योंकि बिफोर आई बिकेम अ थेरेपिस्ट, आई डिडंट इवन रियलाइज दैट आई वाज प्रोक्रेस्टिनेटिंग. व्हाट आर द सिग्नल्स? हाउ डू आई रियलाइज दैट आई एम एक्चुअली प्रोक्रेस्टिनेटिंग एंड इट इज एक्चुअली अफेक्टिंग माय लाइफ?
If I find myself putting off important tasks that I know I should be doing over and over again, and to such an extent that I start getting the consequences. For example, इनको मत बताइए, ये शुरू भी नहीं करेंगे. You know, somebody says that, or people stop giving you things to do because you'll never do it. Or if you find that you're putting off a number of things which are a part of your role. For example, if you're a parent or a stay-at-home mom or dad, then if you, for example, if I'm not doing my load of clothes, अगर मैंने नहीं करे और पता चला that bin is overflowing and लोगों के पास कपड़े नहीं है, then it's affecting my life. Yeah. So basically, a little bit of self-awareness is important, as well as observing those people around me, what they're at, being aware of my response. That's it, basically. Then I start delaying things to the extent of affecting the quality. In a nutshell.
Are there any biological factors that contribute to procrastination?
Yep. There is the prefrontal cortex, the way that functions affects our ability to procrastinate or to do things on time. Achha. Then there's levels of certain neurotransmitters also affect the way we do things. The emotions and hormones and physiology, biology is so closely interrelated. No? The way we feel is so close, so closely. For example, sugar khane se start feeling a little better. Cupcakes and cakes and desserts and all that, we start feeling good. Achha, then happiness is a mixture of so many hormones and emotional situations. Happiness के presence में procrastination बिल्कुल down हो जाती है. So it's just, yes, biological factors do impact it.
और अगर कोई विटामिन में कोई डेफिशिएंसी है, विटामिन डी या वो सब विटामिन में कोई डेफिशिएंसी होती है, देन डू पीपल फील लेथार्जिक एंड स्टार्ट प्रोक्रेस्टिनेशन?
It is possible. It is possible that some of the outcomes of vitamin deficiencies might cause things. For example, if you take things like vitamin D or B12, it can cause issues, and these are two things that are usually quite lacking in vegetarians. It causes issues, and then people who are diabetic, they have a tendency to develop certain depressive symptoms, which in turn lead to a certain degree of procrastination. Yep.
Some success stories in your life that where people beat the procrastination whirlwind and then they came across and then how they transformed themselves, some real life stories.
I can't give you any real life story because, but most people who have followed the internal courage protocol, most people who have gotten onto the journey of resolving themselves, of understanding themselves better, procrastination disappears. However, in the absence of courage, I have a 0% success rate. Because you've heard that thing, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah. Yes.
Drinking needs courage. और वो मैं नहीं कर सकता.
Okay.
That has to be from developing of courage. I can tell you how to develop courage. I can help with you. I can walk with you. But you have to do the leading. There is nothing I can do about it. Say little. So that is so instead of giving you success, which is almost everybody with a little bit of courage, just a little bit, just shuru karne ke liye. But I would rather tell you about my failures, which have been literally 100% in the absence of courage.
Okay. And Siddharth, can procrastination can be beneficial in any way? If so, how? Because if it's a coping strategy, it's serving us in some way. So all coping strategies serve us in some way. So it's serving us. So what are the benefits which a person gets by procrastination?
It's a coping mechanism in the way of speaking. So ऐसे भी but this is more of a how do I put it? This is more of a speculation, where procrastination might, for example, give me more time to think about things. Now, this is interesting in the thinking bit because if you remember, there are these two decision making models. No, one decision making model is based on data. So you take a lot of data to make a decision. I require a lot of data to make a decision, and therefore I take a long time to make a decision. I take fewer decisions, but the number of accurate decisions are very high. That is one. The second model is where I don't use a lot of data, and therefore I make a lot of decisions, but the proportion of accurate decisions are very low. Now, procrastination is usually related to that first one, where I take a lot of data in that. So it might be one thing over there. It is linked to that decision-making model. It also might be, in certain cases, allow me to focus on what is important and all that. It might, if, for example, I might have a meltdown or something if I'm not prioritizing my. But I would say the benefits of procrastination are largely incidental rather than something systemic.
And how does procrastination differ from simply taking a break or resting or slowing down? So many people now say, I'm taking a break, I'm slowing down. So how do I know whether I am actually procrastinating or actually I'm slowing down and taking a break?
One would be to see how many breaks I'm taking as opposed to how much I'm working. So if I'm working for 15 minutes out of 1 hour and taking a break for 45 minutes, chances are I'm procrastinating. For some reason or the other. It could also be avoidance. That doesn't have to be procrastination. Avoidance is a somewhat different thing. But it could be, leaning towards that. That is one. It could also be. Sorry, repeat the question again once more.
So how does procrastination differ from simply taking a break or resting or slowing down?
Like taking a break or
slowing down. Like when I quit my job, I said, now I want to slow down. Now I am actually slowing down, or I am just taking a side task and I'm not doing my role. Or how do I know whether I'm procrastinating or I'm actually slowing down and resting?
ब्रेक तो वो हो गया, उसके बाद आपके वो फ्रीक्वेंसी ऑफ ब्रेक्स हो गए. फिर ब्रेक्स आर इंटेंशनल एंड दे आर इन योर कंट्रोल. You have every intention of going back to the job, and you are taking a break because you want to do the job well. You are taking a break because it is affecting your fatigue, for example, might be impacting your ability to do a good job on whatever task you've been assigned. So you might be taking a break to actually enhance your outcome rather than avoid the job. So the difference is that one is based on avoidance, and the second is actually a healthy practice where I can do a better job. That would be the primary difference in my.
Okay. And what are some common misconceptions about procrastination? Like, actually, it is not, but we believe that procrastination is this.
Mostly two of them. Yeah. One is that I'm lazy. I am lazy means people say this. I think I'm lazy because they're not able to figure out why am I doing this. It seems like such a alien thing, or uske upar se introspection is not something we are ever taught. As kids, even till young adults, most of us are just told ki graduation kar lo, uske baad jo marzi karna hai. And that's all we are really told. We don't, because most of us are operating in survival mode, and therefore we do not look at the things that really matter because they do not aid in survival, like money. Or we think they don't really aid. So because of that, we are focusing on all these things. So anyway, so the most common misconceptions are A, I'm lazy, B, or you are lazy, or B, it is a discipline, it is a time management, it is all those things जो हम ऊपर ऊपर का देख के जो हम कंक्लूजन रीच करते हैं।
या बोले मुझे
It is
आता ही
good
नहीं है
bad.
तो मैं क्या करूं, सीखने की भी कोशिश ना करे और बोलते मुझे जब आता ही नहीं है तो मैं क्या करूं। बचपन में
Yeah,
मैं
but that
करती
would
थी।
be procrastination ना। अगर मैं झूठ बोल रहा हूँ वो अलग बात है, लेकिन अगर नहीं आता तो सच में कैसे करेंगे?
तो मैं सीख नहीं रही हूँ, लेकिन आई कैन लर्न ऑल्सो। पीपल हु से कि जब आता ही नहीं है तो कैसे करूं, बट दे आर नॉट पुटिंग एफर्ट टू लर्न इट ऑल्सो। इज दैट
That is
प्रोक्रेस्टिनेशन एज
true,
वेल?
but yeah, I would not do that there, because that includes two separate concepts. It could be procrastination to learn. That could also be the thing, because in
ओके।
fact, academic procrastination is such a prevalent thing that it has its own category, academic procrastination among students. तो उसका अपने अलग से ही फील्ड है। एंड यस, सो इफ आई फॉर एग्जांपल बिकॉज और भी देखेंगे, सो इन दिस कंट्री एटलीस्ट वी हैव दिस थिंग दैट we have this we confuse education and learning. Whereas the fact of the matter is that most people with master's degrees would barely be able to talk for 3 minutes about the concept of their degree. They haven't really learned anything. So they have received an education, but they haven't learned much. And the attitude towards learning is also quite lacking, in the sense that we need to be learning throughout our lives, learning about our partners, learning about our children, learning about what they need, learning to keep improving ourselves and all that. So therefore, we anyway have a lot of inertia towards the concept of learning. And if learning is required for me to do a job, तो ये job procrastinate होगा ना।
So then what are the different categories of procrastination? Because you mentioned about learning procrastination. So what are the different categories of procrastination?
And let's not go into categories. It's academics are very other, but that's not exactly the same as learning procrastination. It has a few other parameters. So I would only put academic procrastination on one side, and on the other side, I would put all the things that I'm unsure about, all the things जिसमें मुझे internal barriers हैं towards getting to that place. So those things could be, for example, sharing. फियर ऑफ इंटीमेसी। फियर ऑफ इंटीमेसी माने मुझे अपने बारे में, अपनी डीपेस्ट थॉट्स ख्यालें शेयर करने में अपने पार्टनर के साथ मुझे प्रॉब्लम हो रही है। मान लीजिए वेरी सिंपल लेवल, दैट्स जस्ट दैट। अब अगर ये मेरे से शेयर नहीं होता है एंड आई नीड टू डू समथिंग लाइक दिस टू मेक द रिलेशनशिप मूव फॉरवर्ड, देन आई हैव अ प्रॉब्लम। सो देयरफॉर procrastination can be in every field of my life which I have either not resolved or I'm not comfortable with. That could be procrastination. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर मुझे खाना नहीं बनाना आता ढंग से और मुझे बच्चों के लिए ब्रेकफास्ट बनाना है और या डिनर बनाना है पूरी फैमिली के लिए, देन आई विल कीप प्रोक्रेस्टिनेटिंग बिकॉज़ आई एम नॉट श्योर एंड आई एम फेयर ऑफ फेलियर, फेयर ऑफ क्रिटिसिज्म। नहीं कि पता नहीं क्या बोलेंगे, क्या गंद बना के खिलाया, मे बी आई डोंट नो।
Okay, so instead of attacking procrastination, we at times have to deal with our fears.
विदाउट fears, why do I have fear? मुझे एंजाइटी किस चीजों से होती है? अगर मुझे मान लीजिए आपसे भी बात करते हुए एंजाइटी हो रही है, मुझे क्यों एंजाइटी हो रही है? क्या मुझे एंजाइटी हो रही है क्योंकि मेरे शर्ट पे दाग है, मुझे पीछे वो वायर से मुझे प्रॉब्लम है, मुझे जो आप सब्जेक्ट पूछ रही हैं मुझे समझ नहीं आता और मैं सोच रही हूँ आपसे कोई क्वेश्चन ऐसा ना पूछूं जो मुझे पता नहीं आंसर। Somebody really that would be anxious. And if I was anxious, मान लीजिए I might have cut out this conversation between us. I might have said कि अगले हफ्ते करते हैं, हमने तो कल बात करी थी, and we're talking today, right? So therefore, or
I
if you
have
were
few
anxious
such
about this
guests.
meeting,
I have few such guests.
you do. So therefore, if you are anxious, for example, I have a reputation, especially in social media, this things of being a such a bad, very unreasonably strict and all these things. So some people will procrastinate talking to me because they think, "Pata nahi banda kaise baat karega, what kind of an ass he's going to be." So you could have procrastinated sending the first message itself. कि let's talk. Because you thought पता नहीं कैसा बंदा निकलेगा, so वो क्योंकि आपके पास interpersonal anxieties हैं because of my reputation or who knows. We are such complex human beings, such complex beings we are. But interestingly, psychology, our emotions, they tend to follow really logical paths. And most of the time, 1+1 में 2 आ ही जाता है. You know what I mean? It's very logical. So.
Siddharth, you mentioned about introspection at the initial and also couple of times you mentioned. So, अगर मुझे introspection की आदत नहीं है या मुझे पता नहीं है कैसे करना है, so what's the starting? How can I start it?
Just by questioning everything as much as we can. So you're looking at what you'd like to wear today, and you have a choice maybe between a suit and a shirt and trousers, and you choose a shirt and trousers. And then you wonder, why did I choose a shirt and trousers? Just ask the question and let it be. You don't have to stand in front of the cupboard till you get the damn answer. Just ask the question. आपकी awareness में आ गया ना question. फिर उसका जवाब भी नहीं आया, कोई बात नहीं, अगली बार फिर से आपने वही क्वेश्चन पूछा. या आप लंच कर रही हैं, कैफेटेरिया में जा रही हैं अपनी कंपनी के, और जस्ट गिविंग एग्जांपल, एंड यू फाइंड कि नॉर्मली मैं एक रोटी खाती हूँ बट आज मैंने दो उठाई. आज दो क्यों उठाई? Am I feeling hungry extra? I don't seem to be feeling extra hungry. But chances are, then I go a little more. Chances are, rotis actually are a comforting thing for me. For most people, roti and carbs are a source of comfort, right? We derive a lot of good feelings from that garam roti and all those things. So, am I eating extra roti because I need some comforting? Acha, so my boss yelled at me half an hour ago. Is it because that is still there I'm eating extra roti? Chalo, uske baad kha le. No, we don't have to dwell too much upon it. थोड़ा सा इधर, थोड़ा सा उधर. Why? Normally I don't eat rajma, but आज मैं राजमा खा रही हूँ. Why? So just by questioning ourselves at every opportunity, without waiting or expecting the answer, आ जाएगा. हमको बस question अपने awareness की.
Okay. So now time management goes for a toss when I procrastinate, right? So my time management, a lot of things have been written by time management. I was in corporate and lot of exercises on time management. Yeah. So what are some practical tips for managing time and avoiding procrastination? You have mentioned quite a few, but in terms of time management and procrastination, because I think they go hand in hand. So how do I manage my time and not procrastinate?
एक तो वो standard things, use whatever tools are at your disposal. For example, make a project plan, make a nice plan made of whatever करना है. List बनाइए जितने बना सकती हैं. Use your calendar and all those things. लेकिन ये सब put all this aside. One big thing is that a lot of people who procrastinate, they tend to put too much reliance on their internal resources. And they therefore do not ask for help, or they do not use external resources, which includes people. So for example, I might say, and this is all part of the boosting myself wala thing. So for example, I have a great memory. I know I have a wonderful, brilliant memory. But why should I use it to remember something which I can, for example, to remember a whole list of things? I can use my memory for other things. But right now, if something is important to me, I should make a list and put it down on a piece of paper and use that list. But I don't do that because using my memory is a point of internal pride for me. And I will keep stumbling because problem hai. I haven't enlisted all the resources. I might ask you that, could you please give me a call half an hour before, because I have a habit of procrastinating some things. तो मुझे आपको प्रोफाइल भेजना था, मुझे आपको पिक्चर भेजना है, आई हैव अ हैबिट ऑफ प्रोक्रेस्टिनेटिंग, तो आप मुझे ना एक बार और कॉल कर दीजिएगा क्योंकि मेरी आदत है मुझे रिमाइंड करनी. एंड यू विल से हाँ ठीक है. सो आई हैव एनलिस्टेड योर हेल्प. बट इफ आई एम नॉट कंप्लीटली सिक्योर अबाउट माई सेल्फ, आई विल फाइंड वेरी हार्ड टू से ना कि मुझे में ये टेंडेंसी है, मुझे वो बोलने में झिझक होगी थोड़ी, है ना. So therefore, because of those things, I do not use all the external resources available, whether it is people or tools, and instead choose to rely on internal resources, which kind of creates a loop after some time. So सबका अलग-अलग होता है. I'm trying to generalize it. सबका थोड़ा बहुत ऊपर नीचे मतलब. Making any sense, or am I talking too abstract?
Yeah, sure. And how important is acceptance? Like accepting, yes, मुझे भूलने की आदत है, या मुझे ये नहीं करने की आदत है, या टाइम पे नहीं करने. So how important is accepting these things to come out of procrastination? Or when we accept, we actually do it more. So how does it function?
I believe it is 100% important. You have to accept. Without acceptance, there is nothing to solve. Resolving is nothing. So there are two things over here. One is acceptance. The second is justification. One has to be 100% present. The second has to be 100% avoided. Why? Because unless we accept, there is no problem to be resolved. अगर मुझे हमने accept नहीं करा कि मुझे चीजें टरकाने की आदत है, तो प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं. अगर प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है तो मुझे कुछ करना नहीं. That is one. Two, justification. I know I procrastinated, but it was inevitable. So inevitable था तो मुझे तो problem नहीं. Again, we come back to the same place. A lack of acceptance or the presence of justification both point to one thing: there is no problem. And if there is no problem, There's nothing to solve. There's nothing to solve. There is no forward movement. No forward movement. Procrastination continues. Right?
Okay. Is procrastination fully internal? It's internalized, or it also depends on the environment?
It is not internalized. It has got a large internal thing, but we all have external and internal environments. ना? तो मान लीजिए अगर मुझे एक्सटर्नल एनवायरनमेंट से कुछ किसी हद की किसी तरह की एंजाइटी हो रही है, so therefore interacting with our external environment will cause anxiety. Anxiety causes saying a thought or triggers or could trigger some procrastination depending on person to person.
So that means that can we conclude that if I take care of my emotional health, then I will be able to come out of procrastination a lot, because procrastination is because of unprocessed anger and fear, sadness, grief, and all those things. And so if I take care of these underlying emotions, then I can come out of procrastination. Can we say that?
Yes, unless of course you're just lazy and organizing time bad. And I'm going the other way around. But yeah, it's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. And working about the laziness, of course, but yes, it would be a huge step. I can't say 100%. Obviously, it can be so many other factors, given how complex we are as things. But it would be a huge step in that direction.
Okay. So if we want to come out of procrastination, take care of your mental health and especially the negative emotions which you are feeling, to know the root cause and to process it and let it go with love.
True.
We don't cut it and throw it off, but we let go the emotions with love. Yeah.
Indeed.
And Siddharth, very nice conversation, and I'm blessed that I could get this such inputs from your side, and it helped me reflect what all I was procrastinating, and some concluding remarks for our audience. Anything which we wouldn't have covered, or anything which you would like to say as a conclusion?
Yes, we have to let our kids live their lives. We think we're being good parents when we give them everything, but we are actually taking things away from them. I have lost count of the number of adults I'm speaking to who don't know how to cope as adults because they had nice parents. So we tend to look at our role as to make our children's lives easier, but our real role is to make our children, to prepare our children for being adults. And unfortunately, very few of the upbringing I see actually does that preparation, including my own. Most of our upbringing is not conducive for raising successful adults. So I would suggest we allow our children to do things on their own, develop courage, and read about a concept called separation of tasks. That's all I'll say for now.
Okay, many thanks, and I'm grateful that you accepted this invitation and did not procrastinate it.
Thank you for having me.
Accept it very quickly. And I'm going to put the link of your website in the description. Whoever wants to do those small task exercise, please read the description for the link to Siddharth's website. Many thanks for your inputs and for your presence today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to seeing this podcast.